In the heart of Chicago, where skyscrapers touch the clouds and city lights paint the night sky, there lived a man named Daniel Hayes. Daniel was 35 years old, a hard-working professional who had spent most of his adult life climbing the corporate ladder. From the outside looking in, he had it all: a stable job at a respected finance firm, a decent apartment downtown, and a circle of friends who admired his discipline and consistency. But behind closed doors, Daniel carried a burden that was shared by millions of men across America, and, in fact, around the world. It wasn't a burden of money or health. It wasn't even the pressure of family expectations. Daniel carried something deeper, a belief, a cultural conditioning, a lie so ingrained in his heart and mind that he didn't even realize how destructive it was. And the shocking truth? He wasn't alone. Studies revealed that over 97% of men were caught in the same trap, repeating the same destructive patterns, all because of one dangerous myth: that their worth as men came only from external validation, particularly from the approval of others. This lie had been whispered into Daniel's mind since childhood, from the commercials on TV showing men only as strong, wealthy, and successful if they drove the fastest cars or wore the most expensive suits, to the magazines at the grocery store checkout aisles telling him what kind of image he needed to present. Daniel's identity had been shaped by illusions. As a boy growing up in a small suburb of Cleveland, he remembered watching superheroes on screen and athletes on TV, internalizing the idea that a man's value came from proving himself to others, from winning admiration, and from never showing weakness. By the time Daniel reached college at the University of Michigan, the lie had only grown louder. His professors, his peers, and even casual conversations reinforced the notion that if you wanted to be respected, you had to compete, conquer, and constantly chase approval. Whether it was landing the right internship, driving the right car, or dating someone who society deemed worthy, Daniel measured his self-worth by what other people thought. Fast forward to his 30s, and Daniel realized he was exhausted. He had spent over a decade working long hours, not because he loved finance, but because he thought the prestige of his job title would earn him respect. He had dated women not because he felt a genuine connection, but because of how others would perceive him walking into a restaurant with someone who fit society's shallow beauty standards. And each time a relationship ended, he felt like his value as a man crumbled. One night, Daniel sat alone in his Chicago apartment, staring at the city lights. He had just ended another relationship that left him feeling empty, and in his exhaustion, he turned to the internet, scrolling through countless videos and articles. He stumbled upon a podcast hosted by an older gentleman named Marcus Taylor, a life coach from Dallas who had dedicated his life to helping men unlearn toxic beliefs. Marcus spoke with a calm, grounded tone, his words piercing through the noise. Gentlemen, 97% of you are living under the shadow of a lie. You think your worth depends on what society says. You believe you're only as valuable as the job you have, the woman by your side, or the size of your bank account. That's the disgusting lie. And until you break free from it, you'll never truly know peace. Daniel froze. It was as if Marcus was speaking directly to him. For the first time in his life, he realized that all his striving, all his proving, all his desperate attempts to be enough, in the eyes of others were rooted in this one poisonous belief. From that day forward, Daniel decided to test a new path. Instead of waking up to impress his co-workers, he started waking up to focus on his health and peace of mind. He jogged by Lake Michigan every morning, not because it looked good on Instagram, but because it cleared his thoughts and gave him energy. He began journaling at night, writing down his fears, dreams, and insecurities, something he had always avoided because he thought men weren't supposed to admit weakness. At work, he stopped volunteering for late-night projects just to be seen as the guy who always goes the extra mile. Instead, he began setting boundaries, finishing his tasks on time, and then going home to focus on his personal growth. His boss noticed a shift. Surprisingly, rather than punishing him, she respected him more. She even promoted him 6 months later, impressed by his ability to deliver results without burning himself out. Socially, Daniel started surrounding himself with people who valued authenticity rather than image. He reconnected with his childhood friend, Mark from Cleveland, who had become a teacher and lived a simple life with his family in Denver. Mark wasn't flashy, didn't have a big salary, and drove an old car, but he was deeply fulfilled. That friendship grounded Daniel, reminding him of what really mattered. But the most profound change came when Daniel stopped chasing relationships for validation. For years, he had believed the lie that his value as a man depended on whether someone else approved of him romantically. Now, he shifted his focus inward. He worked on his character, his values, and his faith. He spent weekends volunteering at community centers in Chicago, mentoring young boys who were already falling into the same trap he once lived in. He reminded them that being a man wasn't about wealth or status, but about integrity, kindness, and responsibility. One day, while attending a seminar in New York City where Marcus Taylor was speaking live, Daniel finally got to meet the man whose words had changed his life. After the event, Daniel approached Marcus and shared his story, how he had once been trapped by the lie, and how breaking free had transformed him. Marcus smiled and said, "You've done the hardest part, son. You've taken back control of your life. Now your mission is to help the next man do the same." That night, Daniel walked through Times Square, the billboards glowing above him with endless ads trying to sell an image of what success should look like. For the first time, he didn't feel the pressure to measure up. He realized that the world would always try to sell men lies, but the truth was simple. A man's worth comes from within, from how he treats others, how he lives by his principles, and how he chooses to grow each day. Months later, Daniel started his own podcast from Chicago, inspired by Marcus. He called it The Truth About Men and dedicated it to exposing cultural lies that held men hostage. His audience grew rapidly, not because he pretended to be perfect, but because he was raw and honest. He shared his failures, his doubts, and his victories. Men from all across America, Los Angeles, Houston, Miami, Seattle, tuned in to hear his message. They wrote emails thanking him for helping them see the truth, for giving them permission to let go of the exhausting pursuit of external validation. Daniel had found his calling. No longer a prisoner of the disgusting lie that 97% of men believed, he had stepped into freedom, and he was determined to spend the rest of his life helping others break free too. Because in the end, the real measure of a man was not what the world said about him. It was how he chose to live with honesty, courage, and purpose.